Hi everyone. This video is for chapter 4 of Maggie. If you have not finished chapter 1 and chapter 2 from last week and chapter 3, as well as your questions and packets from chapters 1, 2, and 3, please stop this video and do those first, and then you can come back to this. If you do not have your chapter 4 ready to go in your Maggie book, please go get that as well. That way you can follow along while I read. Okay, so we're going to start with chapter 4 on page 30. Maggie had grown bored with not writing cursive, but by now the whole third grade was interested in her revolt. A revolt is like a stand, like she's going on strike, kind of. Remember, we talked about that with when we were learning about Rosa Parks in Black History Month, and we talked about how a strike is when you stop doing something. Well, a revolt is kind of the same way. So she is standing up to the teachers and saying, no, I'm not going to do this thing that you want me to do, which is cursive writing. Each day they wanted to see whether she gave in. Her friends talked about it at lunchtime. In the hall, she overheard a fourth grader say, "There goes that girl who won't write cursive." Many people thought she was brave. Others thought she was acting stupid. Obviously, Maggie could not back down now. She had to protect her pride. So when you say that you need to protect your pride, you're basically saying that you don't want other people to laugh at you because you gave up, kind of. So it's kind of like we talked about in the chapter 3 video where because she was kind of stubborn and she had started this whole thing and then kind of wished she hadn't but didn't want to give it up. A lot of people feel like that, right? So protecting your pride is just kind of not wanting anyone to make fun of her because she gave up and gave in. Let's see. Okay. Courtney and Kelly, best friends who sat opposite one another, did not approve of Maggie. Courtney said, "Only first and second graders print." Kelly said, "I think you are acting dumb, Maggie." Joanne whispered from the next table, "If you are having trouble, maybe I can help you on Saturday." "I'm not having trouble," Maggie whispered back. "I just don't want to do it." So now she's starting to think, what if everyone thinks I'm bad at cursive, not that I just don't want to do it? What if others thought gifted and talented Maggie couldn't write cursive if she wanted to? Mrs. Leeper handed out individual papers with each person's name, first and last, written in perfect cursive at the top. "Today we practice our signatures," she said. And she looked at Maggie. "Even if we write letters on computers, we must sign them in our own handwriting." Maggie studied her neatly written name. If she wrote Maggie Schultz and not one letter more, would this be giving in? Not really, she decided. Not if she wrote like a grown-up. While Kirby, a boy who always did what he was told, more or less, gripped his pencil, pressing down so hard he broke the point and had to go to the pencil sharpener, and Courtney and Kelly wrote with pencils whispering daintily across their papers, Maggie wrote her name the way her father wrote his. So, here we see her signature, Maggie Schultz. But remember, she's not using perfect letters because she's making it look more like a grown-up signature. And when grown-ups have a signature that they write, like if you've ever seen your parents sign something like your test folder or something like that, that's their signature. And a lot of times our signatures kind of get individualized. So like our letters may be smushed together and we may not always write correct cursive. And so that's what she's doing. She's writing it like a grown-up, like she sees her dad do it, where not all the letters are perfect. If you remember, she had criticism for her father. Does anyone remember what her criticism was? She told him that he wasn't closing his loops, right? And so if we look, and if you look in your copy of the book, we can see that the A is not closed, and it looks a little like a U. On the next line, she wrote with her left hand, which was difficult. And then here's her signature with her left hand. Maggie Schultz. I can't write with my left hand. Kirby worked so hard that he needed a rest. He pushed the table into Maggie's stomach. Maggie pushed it back. Mrs. Leeper, said Courtney, Kirby and Maggie are wrecking our cursive. They do it all the time, said Kelly. This brought Mrs. Leeper to their table. See, Mrs. Leeper, said Courtney, pointing. That is where Kirby pushed the table. And this is where Maggie pushed it back, said Kelly. I'm sure they won't do it again. Mrs. Leeper tried to look happy as she paused beside Maggie. So really what Mrs. Leeper is telling the other two is, don't do it at this again. So there are the kids fighting at their table. Maggie quickly curved her arm around her paper and bowed her head as if she was working very, very hard. Mrs. Leeper, who often told the class she had eyes in the back of her head, kind of like me, had already seen Maggie's work, if one could really call it work. Maggie, why are you writing with your left hand when you are right-handed? She wanted to know. So most of us only write with one hand. Now, if you write with two, okay, now some people are very good at that, and some people, it happens because maybe you broke your hand or your wrist or your arm. So, for instance, let's say you were in second grade and you broke your right hand, and that's what the hand you write with. You may have been forced to learn how to write with your left hand, and now you might be pretty good at it. If I really, really had to, I could write with my left hand, but I write very slow, and it's very, very messy, and it's very shaky letters. I write with my right hand. So who writes with their right hand? That would be me. Who writes with their left hand? I think a couple of you do. Is there anyone who thinks they can write equally as good with both hands? Not me. But I could if I had to. So if I had to, because I hurt my right hand, I could write with my left. But what Mrs. Leeper is saying is, unless you have a reason for writing with your opposite hand, it's not what she's supposed to be doing. She's basically messing around. That's the way my mother writes, explained Maggie. Mrs. Leeper moved the pencil from Maggie's left hand and placed it in her right. So Maggie tried to write messy with her loops not closed like her dad, and then she tried to write with her left hand like her mom. But I'm guessing her mom is left-handed, right? Because that's what she told us. So we had to pay attention to the clues. And so because I know actually that her mom is left-handed, that's why I know that she's signing her name with her left hand. But Maggie's not left-handed, so she shouldn't be doing that. Mrs. Leeper, so she removed the pencil from Maggie's left hand and put it in her right, because she knows Maggie's right-handed. And where are the loops on your G's that we talked about? And your L and T are leaning over backward, just like her dad, right? We don't want our telephone poles to tip over, do we? I guess not, said Maggie. Take your paper home and do it over, said Mrs. Leeper. And we must close our A. Your name is not Muggy, right? Because an A that wasn't closed looks like a U. And that's what even Miss Von Bergen and I have told you guys, some of you, about your spelling tests. It's very hard sometimes for us to tell if you have an A and a U, or if it's a W, or if your A is a U, or your E is an O. Sometimes it can be very confusing reading your spelling tests. An R looks like a V. Maggie knew she was done for. So here we go. Mrs. Leeper's doing a little roast of Maggie. She says, don't have your A open. Your name is not Muggy. Muggy Maggie, whispered Kirby, as Maggie had expected. You keep quiet. Maggie pushed the table into his stomach. Mrs. Leeper, cried Courtney and Kelly at the same time. Remember, they were trying to practice their signatures and they kept moving the table. I thought we were going to have a happy teacher today, said Mrs. Leeper. Let's be good citizens. Maggie was sure she would not have a happy recess, and she did not. Everyone shouted, Muggy, Maggie, Muggy, Maggie. Kirby started it, of course. He was not a good citizen. So something that Mrs. Leeper said to her, kind of just teasing her about her cursive, now the other kids are using it to tease Maggie. And, hopefully they're her friends and they're teasing her nicely. And if she asks them to stop, hopefully they would stop. But if they're not, that's not being a good friend, right? Or a good citizen. So now she's probably not feeling very happy. Either she told them to stop and they did, but she might still feel cranky about it. Or she asked them to stop and they didn't, which would make me kind of sad. Would it make you sad too? Or maybe she didn't remember that she should ask them to stop before she gets upset. Because if we don't tell people that we want them to stop, how do we know, right? So if she just said, then they may not know that it's making her upset. But if she stopped and calmed down and said, I don't like it when you do that, maybe they would have stopped. So as you're getting ready for your chapter 4 activities, don't forget to kind of make a prediction about what you think might happen chapter 5. Do you think the kids will keep teasing her? Do you think that maybe they'll stop if she asks nicely? Do you think she's going to do her homework and practice her signature the right way when she gets home? Or do you think that she's going to continue to try to do it like her parents? So at the end of chapter 3, there were actually like a little quiz on chapters 1 through 3. I did not put it into your assignments yet because I wasn't sure if everyone had caught up to chapter 3 yet. I will probably have us work on that on Thursday. So tomorrow, which is Wednesday, I'm going to have you guys do the chapter 4 quiz. Chapter 4 questions and vocabulary page. And then on Thursday, when we do our math, we will also do our little quiz on Maggie, just questions. You get to use your book. It's open book, just like when we do our quizzes on our stories in class. So if you have any questions, let me know. Hopefully you'll get all caught up with chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4 so that you're ready for our questions on Thursday. And I hope everyone is having a wonderful week. If you didn't send me a picture yet of you in your hat, like my ears, please send me a picture and then I can send it to Mrs. Abate. I've gotten a few really awesome ones already, so I can't wait to share them. I hope you have a wonderful night and I will see you later. Bye.